Live with
Post this on the Facebook.
Retro Gaming news and a review of Joe and at Derek Diamond.
Not to be confused with Mac and Joe.
Caveman Ninja was the original game.
Yeah.
And
I'll save it for the show, but I've got a few thoughts on it. Now, where can I hate when Facebook changes their shit. Right. Let me switch, because I have to switch profiles now.
Are you posting Facebook or me?
I'm doing that right now.
Okay.
We'll be reviewing Joe and Mac for the SNES.
The Super Nintendo. Let me check
Also known as the SNES.
real quick and see if we have any voicemails. All right, come on, Anchor.
Retweet.
Nope, no voicemails. Thanks, guys.
Maybe next week.
All right.
Use page.
That's all right. We're a day early anyway, so.
Yeah. It'll be all right.
I got tomorrow off and I'm excited.
Oh, me too. I've got my my annual fantasy football draft tomorrow, so that's why I couldn't record at normal time.
Oh, that's okay.
Because it usually takes a few hours to do. And then
all I have to do tomorrow is open micers.
I hate you had to reschedule your guest.
And it's all right. I figured it was going to happen. It always happens when you have people with different times. Like, people get so weird with time zones, man.
Yeah, I think people just I don't know. Maybe it's just because, I've been doing this for a while and I get used to the time difference, but most average people don't. Like, they just think of.
You'd be surprised at how many people I've booked for the show that I'm like 7:30 Central, and what is your time zone? And they'll be like Pacific. All right, 5:30 Pacific. Be there. And then like you won't hear from them, and then like 7:30 they send you a message, or like 9:30 at night when it's 7:30 their time, and they're like, okay, ready to go. It's like, you're a little late.
Read the fine print, sir. Or madam.
All right. Well,
thankfully, that hasn't happened to me too often.
I think I've got everything ready to go. So if you're ready, I'm ready.
Yep, I'm all set.
All right, here we go in 3, 2, 1. Programs, and we are here for another edition of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And my name is Derek Diamond.
And we're on a different day this week. We're on Sunday. Feels weird up in here.
A nice Sunday matinee podcast, if you will. Almost like, those old like Saturday or Sunday matinee movies you used to go to get like cheaper ticket prices. But I like a good Sunday matinee.
This whole weekend, AMC theaters are doing like a $3 movie for the weekend. We were going to go yesterday, but there's really nothing I want to go see right now.
Yeah, I know they re-released Jaws in 3D, which would be kind of cool to see,
Yeah, they
but
didn't have that at the theater that we had, the AMC we have. If they'd have had it, I'd have went to it.
other than that, there's really nothing that is jumping out at me. But it is cool that they're doing something like that, though.
But anything interesting happened this week for you?
Not really. I mean, work was just, pretty standard. Just we did have to push shooting for the feature back again, due to the one of our actors is working on a show that's being filmed here locally, and they had to film on Sunday, so he wasn't going to get finished until late. So we pushed it back, so it'll be filmed a week from, actually 2 weeks from today.
Nice. So that
So
it's always I hate that feeling when stuff's not done. It's like I just want to get it done.
well, and the worst is just when it's so close. Like you can see the light at the
Yeah.
end of the tunnel, but it's like you're just stuck in this one spot and you can't really do anything until, until you finish that last little bit.
Yeah, and I'm a horror movie aficionado, and last night I was watching Shudder and realized I've never seen Phantasm. I've seen the other ones like Phantasm 2 and 3, and I think there's like 6 of them at this point, but I've never seen the first one. And I didn't realize that movie came out in 1979. And that's it's a pretty good movie for a horror movie in 1979. And was looking at a lot of the trivia for it on IMDb, and that whole movie was filmed over weekends for like months.
Wow.
And because the director would rent all the equipment on a Friday and then just rent it for one day and take it back on Monday. So he rented on Friday, so he would have it the whole weekend.
That's gotta suck to worry about that continuity.
Yeah, I know.
Because like if you're doing it over multiple days, it works. But if you can only focus on weekends, you gotta, like, cause I worry
Yeah,
about, are people's hair, is it gonna be the same? Is facial
yeah.
hair gonna be the same? Little nuances like that.
Yeah, if you've never seen it, it's a pretty good movie. Go check it out. Like, because Halloween's coming up. It's that time of the year. And yeah, it's only like an hour and 20 minutes long. And the original cut of the movie was over 3 hours.
I can believe that though. It's funny you mentioned Halloween because I was taking my dog out for a walk a couple of mornings ago, and I noticed the first little tease of fall. Like there was a nice cool breeze,
Yeah.
and I'm like, and then of course by the afternoon it was sweltering hot. But I'm like, it's on its
Yeah,
way.
you can
It's
enjoy
almost here.
you can enjoy it a little bit in the mornings, and that's about it.
Yeah. What about you? How's your week been?
It's going pretty good. Yesterday, I went thrifting and found some VHS tapes, and I posted it on Twitter. I found Street Fighter, a really good copy of Street Fighter on VHS, and I'm going to do I'm going to do a giveaway here on the show. Not this week, probably either next week or the week after. We get back on a normal schedule, but I'll figure out a good contest for somebody to win. I might just say, tweet at me why you think Street Fighter is the greatest video game movie ever made. And if you can convince me, then you win.
Send us a picture of your best smoking jacket,
Yes.
and you'll get a copy of Street Fighter on VHS.
Send us your best smoking jacket picture, and you will win Street Fighter VHS.
It doesn't have to be a fancy smoking jacket. We'll
Yeah.
just pick the best.
But on that note,
Yeah.
you ready to go into the news for this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Today's stories were submitted to us by I Am the Rampage and Armez Jackson.
Rampage.
If you have a story you'd like us to cover, please send them to nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. And the first story tonight is from comingsoon.net. I'm kind of excited for this. Netflix's Blockbuster series gets a release date and first picks. Netflix has announced a premiere date for its upcoming comedy series Blockbuster, centered around the once prominent chain of video stores. Set to premiere on Netflix on November 3rd, the series will be comprised of 10 episodes, each lasting around 30 minutes. Stars Randall Park as Timmy Yoon, Melissa Fumero as Eliza Walker, Tyler Alvarez as Carlos Herrera, and so on. And it will be... let's see. Yeah, it comes out, what did I say? November 3rd? So
November 3rd.
kind of excited for this. It's kind of a slap in the face to Blockbuster that you're the You're the company that took them down, and now you're going to make a series based on it.
I was about to bring that up. It's ironic that of all the streaming platforms that is creating this series, it is the one that ultimately put Blockbuster out of business.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for it. I really like Randall Park. I think he's been great in what little I've seen him in. He has a hilarious appearance in The Office. He's a pretty underrated character in the MCU, in my opinion. Was a really integral part of WandaVision, especially. I'm excited for it. I mean, we all like that little bit of nostalgia, and I think we all knew it was only a matter of time before some kind of Blockbuster series, not Blockbuster in scale wise, but of course the video store. I think it'll be really cool, and I like the premise of it.
Yeah, it says here the premise is Timmy Yoon is an analog dreamer living in a 5G world. And after learning he is operating the last Blockbuster video in America, Timmy and his staff fight to stay relevant. The only way to succeed is to remind their community that they provide something big corporations can't: human connection.
I wish there was still a Blockbuster around here. Just that there was something exciting, especially whenever they would do the DVD sales where you could get 3 DVDs for $20 or something like that. It was always fun to go to, and it's just almost like you're taking a trip back in time.
Yeah, I know. And we got Rampage and Armez Jackson in the chat room. And Armez Jackson, yes, you are finally here for a live taping. Welcome.
It only took us moving to a Sunday to get more people. So welcome, guys. Thanks for checking us out. But yeah, I think this show will be really fun. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it.
Let's see. This next story comes to us from kitguru.net. Konami is bringing back dozens of delisted games. As a publisher, Konami has taken many steps away from the limelight, especially when it comes to big budget releases. While the number of new games being created remains rather small for now, the publisher has continued to dip its toes back into the industry, the latest move which will see dozens of old Konami games brought back for sale. Of course, they own some of the most iconic franchises, which include Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania, and Bomberman. The publisher announced that the Metal Gear Solid games, which were delisted and so unavailable for purchase, would be coming back to digital storefronts at some point in the future. Now they have announced that a whole host of other games are set to be brought back as well. Let's see, there will be... they tweeted, "Attention Konami fans, for the first time ever, all the classic games you love and the new games you're waiting for are coming to the official Konami shop as Steam digital downloads. 23 games, 18 DLCs." This was then followed up by a number of hashtags giving fans a hint at some of the older franchises set to come back, namely Castlevania, Silent Hill, Bomberman, Metal Gear, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, to name a selection. So what do you think about Konami kind of dipping their toes back into relevancy a little bit?
I dig it. I'm ready for Konami to come back into the limelight. Please bring me. I need more Castlevania games. I need more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games. I need Contra to make a comeback. Why is Contra not a first-person Halo-type shooter these days? Why? Why is it not, Konami?
I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens after these batch of games are released. Because if they do well enough, who knows what could happen? We might get something like you mentioned with Contra. We might see updated or more modern versions of a Castlevania or a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. And
Bomberman would make a great game, sort of like Super Mario 35, games like that, or kind of like, or not necessarily like Tetris 99, but like almost like a 99 type of game where you could get in there and play with Bomberman. That would be actually really be cool.
Yeah, because I remember Bomberman was not a huge deal, like on the level of like a Mario or a Sonic, but you at least knew of Bomberman.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be cool if he made a little bit of a comeback.
I'd be okay with that. Come on, Konami. We need you. We need you in this day and age.
The world needs Konami.
And from comicbook.com, Nintendo comments on the PlayStation 5 price increase following Sony's surprising announcement. And this is after we didn't get to talk about the news last week. This was the week before that we talked about the Sony raising their price. That was actually on the news dump. We did that story that Sony's surprising announcement that they'd be raising the prices of the PlayStation 5 and select regions. Nintendo has now weighed in on its pricing strategies for Nintendo's Switch family of consoles. Nintendo's comments on the topic follow a response from Microsoft, which similarly addressed concerns from prospective buyers who worried that the other major hardware manufacturers might follow Sony's example and increase their own respective prices. Fortunately for those who are still considering buying a Nintendo Switch or the other newer models, it doesn't look like that'll be an issue. Like Microsoft, Nintendo didn't guarantee that it'd never raise prices, seeing how things can always change later, but for now, the Nintendo Switch prices will remain the same.
I don't foresee Nintendo increasing the price of the Switch personally. It's good that they said they can't, guarantee it, because just in the economy we live in, everything is just like is more expensive. Like a lot of things are going up, from groceries, gas. That could be a whole separate podcast about that. But
I heard some rumblings about this from the economic side of why this is happening. It's basically like PlayStation can't sell enough of their PlayStation 5s because they don't have enough of them. So therefore they have to raise the price because they can't. It's like this weird loop of them not producing enough, not selling enough, but they have to charge more, and it's weird how this is happening. And I'm kind of worried about Sony right now because they are really, really slipping behind Microsoft. And I don't want Microsoft and Nintendo to be the only two games in town. I like having I like having different software and hardware options because I don't like monopolies.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Sony will be able to survive. I mean, I think it would take a lot for them to be out of the gaming market personally, because they've been so successful in the past, but we just live in such a strange time economically. And like you said, it logistically, like, it shouldn't make sense what you just described, but it is kind of what it is at this point. So we can just hope that things get better.
But I don't think Sony has the war chest that Microsoft and Nintendo has. They can't afford very many missteps.
True. That is true, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Our next story comes to us from NintendoLife.com. Rare's unreleased Game Boy rival is a true handheld marvel. British video game developer Rare is undoubtedly best known for its close relationship with Nintendo back in the 90s and early 2000s, before Microsoft outright acquired it in 2002. Indeed, games like GoldenEye 007, Banjo-Kazooie, and Perfect Dark have all cemented themselves as icons in the industry. In the late 80s, however, Rare embarked on a decidedly different venture, one that ultimately never came to fruition. As reported by our friends over at Time Extension, before Nintendo's Game Boy system was announced and released, Rare's co-founder Chris Stamper worked on a hardware project known as the Raz Arcade Board, which used a Zilog Z80 processor and could apparently display thousands of on-screen colors, certainly more than Nintendo's own Game Boy can manage. This board would then be utilized in a handheld device that Rare christened the Playboy, with much of the exterior design handled by the company's other co-founder, Tim Stamper. And there's actually a picture of it courtesy of the Retro Computer Museum. It looks like
a foldable Game Boy.
it looks like a foldable Game Boy. It also looks like early concept designs for like a handheld computer device. It's a longtime fans of the Sonic cartoon and the comic book will get this reference, but one of the characters named Sally had like a portable computer named Nicole. It looks exactly like the Playboy. But Nicole was like a darker gray. But that would have been a pretty wild what if scenario if Rare had launched their own handheld system.
Yeah, it seems like this probably would have been very expensive to produce back in the early 90s like this. And just looking at it, it doesn't look very like it would have been very comfortable to play. They would have had to completely redo, like where like it doesn't have a D-pad. It has like a round indented pad for the D-pad, and the two buttons, the A and B button, are down in the corner. So you would be holding it like at the end of it, and you've got all this top weight at the top. Like it looks like it would be very, very uncomfortable to play.
Yeah, it doesn't look very user friendly at all. Like maybe if you take a look at it, if they move all the buttons like higher up from where they are, then it might be a little better. But it looks too bottom heavy. Like this, it looks foldable, but the screen looks so small compared to the rest of it that it looks kind of disproportionate.
It looks like something out of Star Trek. Like it would have been Star Trek tech back on the old original series. Like a tricorder or something like that.
Yeah, I was about to say like the tricorder. Yeah, all they need is William Shatner to endorse it.
But yeah, just looking at this thing, like the select and start button, it looks like those should be switched with where the D-pad and the A and B buttons are.
100% agree.
And the A and B buttons need to be oriented the other way because of the natural placement of your thumb. Like, I don't understand when I see weird control schemes like this. I'm like, are you just not looking at the way hands hold things when you design this stuff?
This is why we have testing.
Yeah.
For things like that.
But I mean, it'd be cool to like get my hands on it and actually play it and see it. But I don't think this thing would have taken off the way it looks now.
We would get some pretty good buzz if we reviewed a game from the never released Playboy.
Yeah, that would be cool, actually. And for the last story tonight, this is from Netflix.com. Francis Lawrence is diving down to Rapture with Bioshock. Pick your plasmid and get ready to evolve because the Bioshock movie just found its director. Fresh off the teaser trailer for his upcoming Netflix spectacle adventure Slumberland, Francis Lawrence is joining the film adaptation, and he's bringing along Logan and Blade Runner 2049 screenwriter Michael Green. The Little Sisters are in good hands. The original Bioshock is more than just a superb first-person shooter game. It's also a sneakily compelling morality tale told deep under the surface of the ocean in a creepy underwater city called Rapture. And it sold a combined 39 million copies worldwide. That's a lot of copies.
Yeah, people loved Bioshock, especially back in the day.
Well, I went back and played it and reviewed it not too long ago, and it still holds up. It's so good.
Well, and to mention Francis Lawrence, he's also he directed the Hunger Games movies, and is mostly known for doing music videos. But he's got some pretty decent clout to him. So, plus with having the writer of Logan and Blade Runner, I think is pretty good. So
I think it's in good hands as long as they stay true to the way that game felt. And just the whole world of Rapture. It's not. I don't care so much about the antagonist or things like that. Like you're the protagonist in the game because it's first person, of course. But what the game is about, the story, and just the atmosphere and the world itself of Rapture. If they don't get Rapture right, it's not gonna be good.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Hopefully it'll turn out well. I'm really curious to see, some set photos to kind of get an idea of the look of the film. And then, of course, when the first trailer drops is when we'll really kind of get an idea. But I really hope it does well. Like we've said this ad nauseum on the show, but I would love for more video game adaptations to be successful.
Yeah, they have to keep that 1920s Art Deco, the world of tomorrow type of aesthetic to everything, just to make it look like Rapture and feel like Rapture. And it needs to feel claustrophobic and dark and scary.
Yep. Hopefully it will.
But next up, we have this month in video game history. On September 19th of 1985, Capcom releases Ghosts and Goblins, originally titled I'm going to butcher this, Makemura in Japan. It was one of the most popular arcade games of the year and went on to spawn a series of later games. I remember you reviewed this one a few years ago.
I believe for our Halloween horror month.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
tough game. It's hard.
yeah. That's I learned that very quickly when I played that for the first time.
And the
But
messed
I
up
still
part of
enjoyed
that
it though.
game is when you do beat it, you don't. It's not the end of the game. You have to go through the whole thing again.
That's those who are listening on audio, you can't see that, but
Yeah.
you probably get the idea. September 14th of 1989, Capcom releases DuckTales for the NES in North America. It, of course, is based on the Disney animated TV series of the same name. It's one of the greatest like animated show adaptations of a game ever. Like it's so fun.
I would go so far as to say it's probably the best Disney game for the NES.
I would agree with that. I had a lot of fun with Darkwing Duck,
Mhm.
but I still think I like DuckTales a little bit more.
I would say it's definitely, if not in the top 5, it's definitely in the top 10 best NES games as far as music, graphics, playability. It's almost a perfect game.
I'd for sure say like maybe borderline top 5, like maybe in like the 6 or 7 range, but absolutely in the top 10.
And let's see, September of 1991, Namco releases Starblade for arcades, featuring one of the earliest instances of real-time 3D graphics in a game. Do I remember playing Starblade? I don't think...
The arcade cabinet looks really cool.
I don't think I played this game, but it looks vaguely familiar. It almost looks like a Tron machine.
It really does, and even the screenshot of the game on the Wikipedia page, it has a little bit of a Tron type of vibe.
Yeah.
I've always liked those big arcade cabinets that you have to like physically sit in to play. There's one there was an arcade in Tallahassee that I went to a couple of years ago that had a Halo one. And I'm like, if I had a house big enough, I would love to have that just on display.
Makes you wonder what happened to all these old arcade machines. Because
now I'm going to be wondering about that for the rest of the day.
There had to be thousands of them spread out. Just in the U.S. alone, thousands of them. And then now there's no arcade. So what happened to all those arcade machines?
If there's not a show based off of that, then we should make it.
We should call Discovery. Be like, hey, give us a show where we hunt down arcade machines across the U.S.
Have we got an idea for you? September 9th of 1996, Naughty Dog releases the original Crash Bandicoot for the PlayStation. Of course, Sony's attempt at having that type of mascot character in vein of like a Mario or a Sonic. And the Crash games are a lot of fun in their own right. But I think out of all of the original trilogy, the original is my least favorite just because the sequels expanded upon it and added so much to it, like improved graphics. Because you go back and look at that original Crash Bandicoot game, it looks rough.
Yeah.
Like it looks really bad, but it's still fun to play. You know, it laid the foundation for 2 and 3. I personally like Crash Bandicoot. I wouldn't say that I love the games, but they are fun.
I never was a big fan of like those first person platformer type of games or even like endless runners, because this is the DNA for endless runners. It just never was my thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody.
September 14th of 2001, Nintendo releases the GameCube and its launch titles Luigi's Mansion and Wave Race Blue Storm in Japan. You know what? I want to review Wave Race. I need to get a copy of this game because I remember loving Wave Race back in the day.
I never played a Wave Race game.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep my eye out for a Wave Race.
It looked fun, and I remember, you know, Japan obviously getting the GameCube before we did, and just like those last 2 months were just killing me because I wanted to play Luigi's Mansion. I wanted to play the new Smash Brothers. And even, you know, when they announced Pikmin, because Pikmin and Smash Brothers Melee technically weren't launch titles. So it came out in middle of November. in North America. Luigi's Mansion and Wave Race were launch titles, but they didn't come out with Pikmin and Smash Brothers until early December,
And Wave
which is really
Race
stupid.
is not that bad. It's going for $20 on eBay right now, so I might have to pick up a copy.
Yeah, I think you should. I figured it would be more, to be honest.
I did too, because GameCube games are going up in price lately.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad I kept a lot of my old GameCube games, because I've seen some that are, like in the hundreds.
I wish I would have.
And last but not least, September 17th of 2002, Square releases Kingdom Hearts for the PlayStation 2 in North America, which you reviewed not too long ago on this show.
I like that game. I still have to play the remake that they did, because it was sent to me, and I just haven't gotten around to it.
I'm a little surprised that this hasn't been turned into a series or a movie.
You would think.
I'd love to see it. Like, I love the story. I remember when this game was announced, I thought this isn't going to work. Like, I would never have pictured Disney and like Final Fantasy, like that marriage to work. But within a few minutes, I was hooked. Like, well, after you get out of the tutorial portion, once you actually really get going with the story, it's a really fun game.
Disney Plus would have a bona fide hit on their hands if they did a Kingdom Hearts series or for Disney Plus, because number one, it would make all the regular Disney characters relevant again. I mean, not that they're not relevant, but they would be in a new series, that kids would like, that older generation would like, and then you got all the Final Fantasy people. And then you would have this awesome TV show that people would be screaming is woke.
Like everything else they do.
Yeah.
So I'm numb to all that, to be honest. Like, if I don't hear anything about it, it's more surprising.
But before we go into a rant about things being woke, let's go ahead and move on to our Patreon shout-outs.
As always, we like to shout out our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. We want to shout out Daniel Salmon, Tyler Watson, which today is his birthday.
Yes.
Am I correct? Yep. So happy birthday, Mr. Tyler Watson. Axblade07, Armez Jackson, Hand Solo, Carlos Longoria, better known as I Am the Rampage, Steph Sargent Sketch, Gus and Penny, Matthew Salmon, Mike Eveland, and Mr. Joey Image. Thank you all so much for your continued contributions and keeping the lights on for us here at the show. If you want to join our awesome Patreon community, you get early access to our fun commentary tracks, like our most recent one where we watched the first episode of Cobra Kai, which was a lot of fun to do. And I cannot wait for the new season, which drops at the end of this week.
And I can't wait, and I'm ready. And we got primed up by watching Cobra Kai episode 1. I'm ready for the season to start. I'm ready for all my shows to start.
That's the great thing about this time of year is all the good shows come back.
I know. I'm so ready. I love fall. It's my most favorite time of year.
It's the well, I'm not going to get into a Christmas song here, but that's for later in the year. But yeah, you get access. We've done other great commentary tracks like Clue, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Transformers the movie. We've also done other shows like Gargoyles, Batman the Animated Series. We also did a TGI Friday time block.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun to do. And you get exclusive access to the new Nerd Cave Retro News Stuff show with yourself and Mr. Wally Phelps.
Yes, we've done 2 already the last 2 weeks. We didn't do one this weekend because there's no news to talk about. Nothing really happened this week, so we talked about it, and we're going to just wait until something drops this week, and then we'll do another news dump. But that's how that show's going to work. If there's something to talk about, we'll have one. If not, we might have to skip a week here and there, because it is the gaming industry, and it is kind of dry a couple of times out of the year. And unfortunately, this week was a bit dry on the news side.
Well, you can only work with the hand you're dealt, so that's totally understandable. But yeah, if you want to join our awesome Patreon community, just head over to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro for as little as $1 a month.
Yes.
And for new patrons, be sure to send us your social media info, whether that's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, so we can give you a proper shout out.
And I did want to say, everybody head over to Tyler Watson Twitter page, it's at Daimao1985, DAIMAOH 1985, and give him a birthday shout out for us and tell him he's awesome because we like that guy. He's cool. He's our fact checker to the fact checker.
He's good people.
Yeah, he is.
No,
And,
Tyler's great.
I do not have music for Joe and Mac because I forgot to do it. So we're just going to go right into the review. Derek, take it away.
Oh, you don't want me to sing the theme song?
You can if you want to.
No,
I'm here for
you
it.
don't want me to. Trust me. I'm not going to do that. Our listener rate will plummet if that happens. But yeah, so I'm going to be honest. I couldn't really decide on what to review for this week because I've had a couple of different games that I've been kind of bouncing back and forth on. Like nothing's really been holding my interest. So I decided that I would talk about Joe and Mac, which is a game that I heard of way back in the day, but one of those that, like during the early 90s, I was like fully focused in on like Mario World, Link to the Past, and a few other games as well. And I knew of it, but the video store in the town that I lived in never got a copy of it. And it's not really one that I wanted to go out and buy.
Yeah, this was always a rental for me. I never bought this game, but I loved playing it. But like I said, I liked the arcade versions, Caveman Ninja, and so of course anything I could play that was a direct port to the Super Nintendo, because the Super Nintendo could actually pull off arcade style graphics, and I really liked this game, and I don't know why I never bought it, but I did rent it several times.
And I wish that I would have been able to rent it because I actually had a lot of fun playing it, which of course, Joe and Mac was released for the arcades by Data East in 1991, and then was later adapted for the Super Nintendo, the Mega Drive / Genesis, NES, Game Boy, etc. So I played the Super Nintendo version, which is on the Switch Online shop. And I remember hearing about this game and hearing good things, and it looked like a lot of fun. I remember reading about it in Nintendo Power, but I just never really had the opportunity to play it. So whenever I saw it was on the Switch Online store, started getting into it, and then it really held my interest. So I'm like, I think this will be what I talk about. But it's a pretty straightforward game. You play as, of course, a caveman named Joe or Mac. Joe has green hair, Mac has blue, and you go through numerous prehistoric theme levels. And the goal of the game is to rescue various cave women, and this is kind of where the differences between the games start. So in the Genesis version and in the arcades, all these cave women are kidnapped by a rival group of Neanderthals. In the Super Nintendo version, the cave women are scared off by them. So I don't know. And this is like, it's like eliminating the blood from Mortal Kombat, from the Nintendo version. It's like, so I don't know if they didn't want that image of kidnapping, even though the theme of your most iconic franchise is rescuing a effing princess.
I don't know. Nintendo did weird stuff with all these ports. Like you said, with Mortal Kombat and the green blood, like, come on. Why?
It's in your most iconic franchise. It's your flagship. You rescue a kidnapped princess. Sorry, I hit my microphone. But no, cave women is where we draw the line.
Yeah.
Like that's too extreme. So anyway, your goal is to go through these various levels. You fight a boss at the end of each of them. And then once you beat said boss, you rescue one of the women. They give you a nice little kiss on the cheek, and they run, I guess, back to camp. And then you keep going along. The controls of this game are pretty simplistic. Like you have, your club that you use as a primary weapon, but you can pick up projectile weapons throughout the game. And this spans over all versions of the game. So you could get boomerangs, bones, fire, electricity even, which I think the electricity is exclusive to the arcade. If you go through and play this game, I think it is pretty crucial that you get some type of a projectile weapon for two reasons. One, they're stronger than your primary weapon. And two, it's just really difficult when you have a very close range weapon,
Mhm.
because there's one stage early in the game where the boss you fight is a giant pterodactyl. It can make it very difficult because there's only like one or two occasions during, when the boss is doing his routine and his movements and everything, that you can actually inflict damage. If you have a projectile, you can do it really at any time. And that's the thing, is if you run out of lives, you can still continue and go back to kind of where you were, but you lose your projectile, which is unfortunate because that happened with me fighting that pterodactyl. And once I got to it, I'm like, oh wait, I don't have a projectile. How's this gonna work? And it took me a pretty good while to actually beat the boss, but it almost requires you to be more strategic in how you fight the enemies, because with the projectiles you could just mindlessly throw, and you'll chances are you're going to hit something.
Yeah, you can't just cheese the boss on a game like this.
Nope. No,
Hmm.
you cannot. I learned that the hard way. But some other differences between the various versions, with the arcade and the Genesis version, there's no overworld map, so you pretty much just go from stage to stage, and you can't go back to any of the previous ones. With the Super Nintendo version, there is an overworld map where you can, like, you walk to a certain point on the map, and that's where you enter the level. But you also find you can go through bonus rounds. The way you get projectiles is you break open these different eggs. One might have a boomerang, one might have a bone that you can throw, but some have these pink pterodactyls that pick you up and carry you to the bonus stage. And that's where you can get other power-ups, you can get extra lives, you can also get keys that will open treasure chests on the overworld map.
See,
So and those contain um other items that'll help you along the way.
I'm gonna have to go back
uh,
and play this again because it's been a long time since I've played this game. I remember liking it a lot, but I don't remember any of this that you're telling me about.
I think looking back on it, I would really like to go back and play the arcade version or the Genesis version, because I feel like the Super Nintendo version was almost too easy.
I think
Because
that's probably why I have a memory of not buying it. I think I was able to beat this game really easily, and I remember it being kind of short.
it is short. Yeah, it took me like a couple of hours to
Hmm.
to fully get through it. I still had fun doing it and going through the whole process, but it does get kind of repetitive. Yeah, at certain points where it almost feels so like almost monotonous what you're doing, because the objective is the exact same
Yeah.
in every level, and every level is a little different, which isn't bad. But at the same time, you only have a very limited number of attacks. The levels aren't that long. The boss fights are fun for the reasons I mentioned, that you kind of have to be strategic if you don't have your projectile. But I wish this game was a little bit longer and a little more challenging.
Yeah.
Would be my biggest gripe with it. That, and I was reading some reviews of the Super Nintendo version, and they were praising the musical aspect, because I'm a sucker for 16-bit music,
Hmm.
and it's not that I disliked the music in the game, but it was just okay. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't terrible, but you know how most games that we really like have those one or two tracks that really stand out, where it's
Yeah.
like, with Link to the Past, it might be the overworld theme or the theme from the Dark World. From Mario World, God, there's several that I can think of. But with this, it's just, it's kind of catchy. I kind of found myself getting into it a little bit, but nothing really stood out with me. But I also don't think it's fair to expect every single game to have, like iconic level music.
This just goes to show how hard it was to create a music that would stick to you. Like here we are 35 years later and we still can recall most of the games we played, like Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda, Contra, like those games where if I just hear the music, I instantly am transported. Like I know exactly what game it is, I know exactly what level it is. Like it's weird, but then there's a lot of games like this that's just, it's got good music, but there's nothing special about it.
And that happens even with modern games too. Like you look at Breath of the Wild, you
Yeah.
expect nothing less than iconic from the Zelda
But there
franchise
really
when it
wasn't
comes
a
to
lot of
music.
music in Breath of the Wild, though.
There are some tracks that are good, but you look at Link to the Past,
Hmm.
like you can recite like the music in your head pretty much at will. Same thing with Ocarina of Time. Heck, I'm like that with Wind Waker and Majora's Mask.
Hmm.
But with Breath of the Wild, it was just kind of like some of the tracks were nice, but it's more, I think just because there's so much exploring in the game
Yeah.
that you rely more on like the background noises and kind of the ambience,
Yeah.
which I mean it is what it is, but kind of getting back to Joe and Mac, it is a game that I do wish I had played when I was younger because I think I would like it more than I do now. And that's not to say I dislike the game.
Hmm.
The controls are pretty simple. Um, how do I say this?
Well,
Because I've
I
oh go
just want
ahead.
to say, like, if you would have played this back then, like I did, this was at the time, an above average platformer type of game. Like, but now you go back and play it, it's like you've played a million things that are better than this.
And I like the visual aspects of Joe and Mac. Like I think it's actually still a pretty good looking Super Nintendo game. The Genesis version looks a little more brighter, like there's a little more saturation in the
Mm.
colors. But I still probably would have played the Super Nintendo version over the Genesis just because that's what I had,
Mm.
at the time. But I think, this game, it still holds up, I think. Like the controls are pretty easy. It's almost a little too simplistic, kind of as I was saying before, but I still liked it.
Mm.
I don't know if it's one that I'm going to go back and play through again, but that's okay. Like not every game is going to be that. I'm curious to play the sequel because Joe and Mac 2 is also on the Switch online store. So I'm kind of intrigued to maybe in like the next couple of months play through that and see what, if any, improvements have been made on that. But I like the world. Like it's anytime there's like a comedic prehistoric setting, automatically go to the Flintstones.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a little Flintstones vibe from that. But I thought I thought it was overall a pretty fun game. Not perfect by any stretch. I would be very curious to play through the Genesis or the arcade version because I did hear those were more challenging.
Mm.
So I would probably end up liking those more. But it's not really a knock, on the game. And as far as um, mentioning sequels, there are actually several. Uh, let's see. Joe also appeared in the 1993 Game Boy puzzle game Frankie, Joe and Dirk on the Tiles, along with Frankie from Dr. Franken and Dirk the Daring from Dragon's Lair.
That's weird.
That's a strange pairing.
Yeah.
Very strange pairing. Let's see. The title duo would later return in Joe and Mac 2 Lost in the Tropics, which added light role playing aspects to the series. And an arcade sequel titled Joe and Mac Returns eschewed the scrolling action of the original games in favor of gameplay similar to another Data East series, Tumble Pop, which I've never heard of until this
I
moment.
don't remember Tumble Pop at all.
Let's see. Tumble Pop. Players are tasked with traveling across different countries, capturing enemies, and throwing them as bouncing balls,
Huh.
jumping on and off platforms to navigate level obstacles while dodging and defeating monsters in order to save the world. This looks like one of the educational games that I played on like an old computer in elementary
Yeah,
school.
it does.
That's weird. But as far as reviews for the game, Game Rankings rated the Genesis version a 75%, SNES 65.88, and the Game Boy version a 72. All games rated the Genesis 3.5 stars, NES 2.5, and then it was also available for the Amiga and Amiga Power gave it 22%.
Oh, wow. That's not
So,
good.
so I guess the consensus is don't play it on the Amiga.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
weird.
Super Play gave the SNES a 72%, and Total gave the Game Boy version a 75%. Do you think this game maybe had too many versions of itself?
Probably. I mean, but that like Data East was a third-party developer. And for me personally, like when I think Joe and Mac, I instantly think of the Super Nintendo because this is the majority of where I experienced this game. Was I played it in the arcade a few times and then the Super Nintendo. And it doesn't even register to me that this came out on so many other systems. Maybe that's why it's not as revered now as it probably could be or should be. Like if this was an SNES exclusive or just a straight Genesis games, it probably would have been, I don't know, looked at a little more favorably. But I guess when you get to that third party where it's on everything, it's just sort of like doesn't have nothing. It's not doesn't make it special, you know.
Well, I feel like there were so many games that were like this out there at the time that were probably better.
Yeah, and
And I
like
know
I
you
said, it's a little more above average than your average, side scroller for the 16-bit era, but it seemed like there were a lot of them, so it just probably just got lost in the shuffle.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. I would say my overall thoughts on the game, it was fun. I really liked the kind of the comedic setting of it, the prehistoric universe and everything that they built. Some of the boss fights were fun, a little too simplistic and for my taste personally. And as I mentioned, like when you get about halfway through the game, it starts to really feel monotonous and mundane because you're not really doing anything different. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because it was originally an arcade game and that's just kind of what it was.
I
But
found a good quote here from Stuart Campbell of Amiga Power, and he said, "Still haven't quite got the grips of how to toggle the music and sound effects." He criticized the game for some of the cheap and nastiest looking graphics seen on the Amiga in recent memory, and then he criticized the game's poor control system and its quote fairly short and tedious levels, and concluded that the game was a quote lump of crap.
well, at least he kept it PG.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so don't play this on the Amiga. Play it on the Genesis. See if you can find the arcade version, or if you have a Switch, go to the online shop and get Joe and Mac.
Yeah. I think if this probably would have been like a if Nintendo had gotten the franchise out of this or whatever, like Joe and Mac probably could have been not nearly the level of Mario, but maybe like the level of like Mega Man. They could have been Mega Man level, NES mascots or Super Nintendo mascots if it had been a console exclusive.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I would say overall, I would give this game probably a 6.5. Like 7 to me is the average of what I would give like a solid game, and I would put it just slightly below that because
Yeah.
I don't have the nostalgia for this game that I would for other games like it of that era.
Yeah,
It has some fun moments, and I do think if you're on the fence about it, definitely give it a shot. But don't expect anything too challenging. But it is still a fun game.
I'm
So
just wondering what I'm going to
overall,
think about it because, like I do have nostalgia for this game, and I'm wondering if it's going to hold up or if it's going to maybe not be as good as I remember it.
only one way to find out, sir.
Yep, I'll have to play
So
it.
yeah, those overall my thoughts on Joe and Mac. Still a fun game.
I just remember I liking this game a lot. I say go give it a try. It's not going to be. It's not perfect. It's not going. It's a good afternoon waster.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've spent the last few evenings doing, where I've had some free time, is just pull out the Switch and play some Joe and Mac for a little while.
And next week, I'm going to be reviewing Karate Kid in honor of Cobra Kai, and I still haven't played it yet. I'm going to have to stream it at some point. I might stream it tomorrow if I can. But if not, I'll definitely stream it one evening this week if you guys want to join me and see the awfulness that was LJN's Karate Kid adaptation for the NES.
So what you're saying is fear will not exist on this podcast next week.
Will not enter this dojo. Yes, Rampage, it was tough, and I do remember it being very tough, but I do remember liking the ice-breaking mini game in it, but I remember that being the only part of that game that I even remotely liked.
I have never played the Karate Kid game, so I'm very curious to hear what you say about it.
And the Karate Kid game and the Rambo games are kind of squashed memories for me, so I think I might have played those two games relatively at the same time, because I remember Rambo being very difficult, because that was an LJN game as well, and and I think if I remember correctly, I remember seeing some videos about it. It's a very tough game because it's one of those games that's not linear, and I might have to try it out and see what that one was like too.
We just make it a month of bad reviews.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll dedicate a month to LJN games. How about that?
That's 4 more weeks more than they deserve.
But that brings us to the end of the episode. What is happening this week on Feature Presentation?
Yes, so you can check out, I actually did a really fun interview with a horror filmmaker named Tori Jones. He grew up a huge fan of the Halloween franchise. And yes, I do ask him his thoughts on Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. And we talk about some of his other fun projects too. So he's made actually quite a few horror films. So if you like horror films, then check out the Feature Presentation podcast. Of course, you can follow the show at Feature Pres Pod on social media, and you can find it on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
And Rampage in the chat room just jogged a memory for me for the Karate Kid game. He said that swinging crane part is tough. I never understood what to do. I think that's where I stopped playing the game because I couldn't figure out what to do either. I remember being very, very frustrated by that part of the game. So we'll see what happens when I play it on Twitch and see if I can understand what to do this time.
It should make for some entertaining content, that's for sure.
I can't wait. And if you're not following the Open Micers podcast at Open Micers on Twitter and Instagram, what are you doing with your life? We've had some awesome, especially if you're into comedy, we've had some really good comedians on the last few weeks. We've had like an episode like every 3 days. So you've got plenty of content over the last month or so to go check out at Open Micers Twitter and Instagram. And I think that's going to bring us to the end of the show. So is that everything before we walk out the door?
I think so.
Awesome. Let's do it. If you would like to email us, you can email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. And now, nerdcaveretro.com sends you straight to our link tree. You can get to everywhere from there, to Twitter, Instagram, and especially our merch shop, ncrmerch.com, where if you go there right now, they have a Labor Day sale going on. Everything in the store is up to 35% off. You can go get yourself a Planet Juice t-shirt. You can get yourself a Get In User. We're doing video game stuff t-shirt. Anything you need. Not even if you doesn't even have to be a t-shirt. You can get a coffee mug. You can get a magnet. Whatever you need. ncrmerch.com. And of course, patreon.com/nerdcaveretro is our Patreon. And if you can't do that, I understand times are tough. Leave us a review wherever fine podcasts are given away for free. So Derek, please tell them what it's all about.
May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
Yes.
Oh, a fellow chucker, eh?
And that's an episode.
I love that soundbite.
I know. I need to go
It's one of
capture
my
some
favorites.
more from that movie.
There's so many good quotes.
I know. Dude, I have so many copies of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on VHS now. It's stupid. I think I might be becoming a hoarder.
You could be
Ninja
much
Turtles
worse things.
VHS tapes. It's getting bad at this point.
You should get the one where Michelangelo says, "Wise men say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late
I
pizza."
think I had that one on my old soundboard. I'll have to go see if I can export it.
Because that'd be a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I love that one. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'll have to go capture a bunch of stuff because I love that movie. And every time I see it on VHS, I can't help but buy it. It's weird. It's like a compulsion.
I mean, it's just such a good movie. It's still one of my favorite movies of all time.
And then I see like the variant covers from the different covers they had for it. And I have to get those. And I'm like, man, I'm got a problem.
I'm actively working on this, but I'm trying to get the director of that movie on my show.
Dude, please, when you do, let me know. I have like a million questions.
Yeah, so I sent an email to his I think his business partner, and she said that he's currently filming a movie, but once that's done, he'll do it.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So,
dude, please,
fingers crossed.
Everybody watching, please, fingers crossed that Derek gets the director of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on feature presentation.
I think I sold the fact that I said like that was literally the first movie I ever saw in a movie theater.
That's so cool.
And that, now I want to do movies. So it's
first movie I remember seeing in a theater was The Great Muppet Caper.
Oh, that's a good one.
Like, I remember
that's one of my favorite Muppet movies, by the way.
My mom and dad took me and my brother to the movies, and there was one of those movie theaters with two theaters, one on each side, and one had The Great Muppet Caper, and the other side was Dragon Slayer. So my dad took my brother to see Dragon Slayer, and my mom took me to see Great Muppet Caper.
I haven't watched that movie in a long time.
And then there was Aladdin's Castle, which was right next door. So that was
even better.
Yeah. That might be heaven. When you die and you get to heaven, you get to live like one perfect day forever. That might be it.
Great Muppet Caper in Aladdin's Castle.
Yeah, be awesome. But thank you guys for watching on Twitch and later on YouTube. We will see you guys next week.